Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Whether you are, attending in real time now, we love that, or whether you're going to watch this later. Really excited to have you with us. Just to make sure that our audio and video is working. If everyone wanted to, just put in the general chat where they're tuning in from, we would love that. Just make sure that we know that, the audio tier is working and, you're able to see us. But yeah, where's everybody tuning in from? Oh, we got a local, we had Heather local from Denver. If you didn't know, Heather, we're at Brighter Vision out here in Lafayette. So just outside of Denver. I live in the Highlands though, so pretty cool to have someone local. So anyways, my name is Sam Chwalowski and I am the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Brighter Vision. This is the second webinar of our Fall into Cash campaign. And we're really excited to be producing these webinars each week in the month of September. If you're a Brighter Vision customer, it is great to see you again. If you're new to Brighter Vision, our whole goal is to make marketing simple for therapists. Whether you are a customer, a current customer, or new to us, these webinars are for you, and we're really excited to have you with us. Want to just mention quick, we do have the general chat feature down there. It should be on the right side of your screen. Feel free to put any questions that come up in that chat feature. Dan is joining us today, and he's going to be speaking about some really cool stuff. He's going to speak for about 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll get to any questions for the remainder of the time after that. So feel free to use that general chat feature. Also wanted to let you know, Google Chrome is typically going to be the best browser to view this webinar. It's going to be the clearest, the audio is the most consistent. So if you're not using Google Chrome to watch this, I would suggest that. If you are on a phone or an iPad, Demio, which is the company we do this through, also has a great mobile application that you can use. So with that, really excited to have you all with us. Brighter Vision is also offering $100 off our website service until the end of September with coupon code FIC2019 to any new customers, and that's going to be a discount on our website package, and I will put that in the description here. As well, we are offering 14-day free trials of Social Genie, which is our groundbreaking social media management software that allows you to schedule out about a year's worth of social media posts to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn in just about 10 to 15 minutes of your time. So a whole year's worth of social media marketing, but it only takes you about 10 minutes. So we'd love to have you try that service out and test it out. I am super excited today to be joined here by Dan Dolovit. Dan is the Director of Business Transformation with Exego Business Solutions. He has more than 15 years experience in corporate financial planning and analysis. Dan is proficient in analyzing financial and operational data of companies, identifying variances to plan, assessing the risks associated with those variances, and proposing the corrective actions needed to help companies achieve their goals. Dan has a Bachelor's of Science in Economics from the University of Wisconsin and an MBA in Finance from Georgia State University. As a part of a special offer for Fall into Cash and this webinar, Dan and the folks over at Exego Business Solutions are offering something really excited. Profit First, which we're going to be talking about today, is a system developed by Mike McCalloway that you may have heard before, or if you haven't, you're going to learn more about it today. But what Dan and his team over at Exego have done is take this system and apply it specifically to therapists. So they've created a course that tells you how to implement Profit First, normally a $795 value, but with coupon code Brighter Vision, you'll receive it for 75% off, costing you just a little under 200 bucks. We'll put a link in the description for that in just a second. But without further ado, I will let Dan jump into it here. Hey, Dan, so happy to have you with us today, and really excited to hear all of the great kind of tips you're going to have for us about how to design your business so you can start strong and have a financially successful operation.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. Yeah, this presentation is really the introduction to a process that you can use to design your business if you're just starting out, or if you're not completely satisfied with where you are today, what you can do to make your business better for you and really make it your dream business. So this is really all about designing your business for success. You touched on a lot of my bio already, but I basically, what I'll add is that I've got 20 plus years of just helping businesses do whatever they do better. I'm very proficient. I'm a numbers guy, so I'm very good at looking at numbers, kind of identifying problems and suggesting ways to make things better. I'm going to start out with a quote. There's a lot of versions of this quote out there, but Yogi Berra said, "If you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else." And I think a lot of people go into business. There's a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. People are very good at their craft, and they don't necessarily care for the way or necessarily agree with the way their employer currently operates their business. So they go ahead and open up their own practice. And they don't really give much thought to it other than, I just don't like where I'm at. It would be so much better if I did it myself. So a lot of the times that doesn't work out the best for individuals. So I'm going to provide a framework to help you design the practice of your dreams so that you can have a very fulfilling career with your own business. I am a numbers guy, but I think the most critical part of what I talk about is finding your why. And this isn't something that I came up with. Simon Sinek has a book, and he's got a TED Talk that's very popular on YouTube called Starting with Why. And Simon is very proficient about this. He talks about every organization in the world, every company, they know what they do. And most companies, or some of the companies, know how they do it. They know how they differentiate themselves from the competition. But very, very few people in organizations know why they do what they do. You know, some people say, well, I do it to make a lot of money. Well, money isn't necessarily the reason. It's not your why. There's a deeper purpose behind that. It's the reason that you're doing what you're doing. So everybody's why is a little bit different. Some people just want to help people. Some people want to reach as many people as they possibly can. Some people have a personal story that inspired them to get into the field that they're in, and they're using that as their why. Everybody's why is a little bit different, and none of them are right or wrong. It's whatever's going to make your life most fulfilling by pursuing that why. Strongly encourage you either read the book or check out the video on YouTube, Simon Sinek. So you need to determine what you want from your practice. Some people just want to help people. They just want to have a small little office by themselves, or maybe a home office. And I just want to help people. I don't have financial aspirations. I just want to help. Some people want to reach as many people as they can. And that can have a bunch of different views, bunch of different footprints. You can have multiple offices. You can have a lot of therapists working for you. You can have a big online presence. There's a bunch of different ways to define that. It's really figuring out what's best for you. Some therapists just want to mentor other therapists. They enjoy the process of bringing people who are just out of school and getting them through their hours and helping train them up. All of these whys are completely different from each other, maybe a little related, but they're all different. And I really strongly encourage everybody to find the why that is specific to them. Why are you doing what you're doing? I promise you that if you find your why, you'll jump out of bed every morning and just love what you do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the economics of business. I am a numbers guy, so I will warn you now, this presentation gets a little numbery, but understand that I'm trying to teach the process, and the numbers can and will change based on your scenario. I do need to put numbers in here to help illustrate my point, and that's why they're in here, but they're always open for debate. Okay. Every business operates from an income statement, and this is a very simple income statement. Revenue minus variable cost equals gross profit minus fixed cost equals operating profit. There are three different categories: revenue, variable cost, and fixed cost, that we're going to talk about in detail in this presentation. So let's first talk about revenue. Revenue, everybody knows what revenue is. Revenue is what you receive in exchange for goods or services to your customers or to your clients. Now, there are several different ways that you as a therapist office owner can generate revenue. You have your own billable hours. Maybe you've got some associates that work for you and they have billable hours, and maybe you have some other types of revenue. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to assume that the average billable rate is $125 per hour, and that a full-time therapist bills 25 hours per week, and that there are 4 weeks in a month. Now, I know that we've got people from all over the country, and rates vary based on where you are in the country and how much experience you have. And I know there's a lot of work involved in getting a full client load of 25 billable hours. I concede all of that. But if you build a model like this, you can put in whatever numbers you want that align with your why and your area, okay? So for the purpose of this, I'm going to assume that I can bill $125 an hour for 25 hours a week, 4 weeks in a month. So that's 48 weeks in a year. It gives me 4 weeks of vacation every year. And I'm going to bill about $12,500 per month. My associates are going to bill the same and work the same, but I'm going to assume in all these situations that I have a 50-50 revenue share split. So even though I'm generating $12,500 in revenue, I've got to pay half of that in expense, and half of that goes towards the company. And then there may be other methods or other ways for you to raise money. Maybe you've got online downloads or webinars. Maybe you do some speaking and do some speaking fees. You receive some speaking fees for speaking. Maybe you're an author and you sell books. Or maybe you have a blog subscription. All of those are other items that you can use to generate revenue for your practice. I will say that I'm going to pretty much ignore a lot of these other revenue items. But if that's part of your why, then certainly pursue that. I'm going to concentrate primarily on billable hours. The first type of cost that you have are variable costs. And it's important to differentiate between the variable cost and the fixed cost. Variable costs change based on the level of output. So as your associates bill hours, your expense increases. So in our situation or our scenario where we assume that they're going to bill $125 for 25 hours, 4 weeks a month, 50% of that is going to go towards them for compensation. So if they bill 0 hours, well, you're going to pay 0. If they only bill, instead of billing 100 hours in the month, they only bill 50 hours, then they're only going to receive $3,000 in compensation. So your variable cost would only be $3,000. Your revenue would only be about $6,250. Okay, they're variable. Fixed costs are costs that you have whether you show up for work and bill anything or not. The most common fixed costs are salaries and rent. But depending on your office and what you all include, it's a variety of different things. It's insurance, it's legal expenses, it's training, education, office supplies, marketing expenses. There's a whole variety. This is a pretty extensive list, but it is far from being a complete list. So if there are some things that you have in your office that you would like to add, part of this model, please feel free to add it in and make something that's as accurate as possible. Okay, enough with the education. Let's talk about how to design the practice of your dreams. The process is always the same. And I'm going to walk you through 3 different scenarios, 3 different whys, for lack of a better word, 3 different scenarios of how I would design the business for each one of these whys. And the process is always the same. First thing you want to do is you want to find your why and really, really be clear on what you want to get from your practice. After you know what your why is, define the components to implement your dream practice. Where is your revenue going to come from? What are your variable costs going to be, if you have any? What are your fixed cost categories? Once you have a clear understanding of the what's that you need, then we're going to go ahead and assign value to each one of those components. Once we've got values assigned to components, we're going to build your income statement, and we're going to take a good look at it and review it. Maybe your business is financially viable once you put all of your different items in. That's fine. We'll just go back and revise as needed and come up with an income statement that works for your business. Again, this is a process, and we're going to follow that process for every individual scenario that I can produce. So the first scenario is a sole proprietor. The assumption is that it's going to be just one person working in their practice. Only their hours are going to be billable. So since I have no additional associate therapist, I've got no variable costs. And my fixed costs are going to be rent and marketing. And I have a website and some software, internet and phone, some insurance and some office supplies. Once I define all of the different components that I need, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign values to them. I'm going to use my same assumption that I've got $125 billable rate. I can bill 25 hours per week, 4 months, 4 weeks in a month, going too fast, for $12,500 per month in revenue. Now, I know that sometimes we have no-shows, and there are different situations where I wouldn't be able to show up for work, or people aren't going to be able to make appointments. This is a plan. Maybe I want to plan for 28 clients, knowing that about 3 clients per week are going to cancel or change. So you can pull a lot of different levers to get the numbers that you need or want. Moving over to my fixed costs, I'm going to assume that I have a small office for $2,500 a month. I'm going to spend $500 a month on marketing. Cost me about $100 for my website, case software, internet. I'm just going to use my cell phone for my business, insurance, and office supplies. After I assign a value to all of my fixed costs, I sum that up and I find out that I've got fixed costs of $3,475 per month. Step 3 is to go ahead and build the income statement. So I know that I'm generating $12,500 worth of revenue. My fixed costs are $3,475, so my operating profit is $9,025 per month. And if I annualize that, it's $108,300. Now, I know that some businesses, the legal structure of businesses are different. I know some of you have LLCs. I know some of you have S-Corps. I am assuming that I am not paying myself a salary out of here, which is what you would do in an S-Corp. So if that was the case, let's say you pay yourself $8,000 a month out of your S-Corp. All you would do would increase your fixed cost by that $8,000 a month or $96,000 a year. And then your profit would drop to like $14,000 per year, but then you'd be receiving your comp. So it's all the same numbers. It's just laid out a little bit differently based on how your organization is set up. Scenario 2 is I'm going to open up an office and I'm going to have 6 therapists working for me, 6 associates. And my assumption is that I'm not going to bill any hours myself. I'm going to spend my time supporting those other therapists, either with their cases or training them or mentoring them. But my goal is to have 6, and I want to have 6. That's my goal. That's what I want. I'm going to have a 50-50 revenue split with each of those employees. And I'm probably going to need a bigger space. And I'm probably going to need a receptionist. I'm assuming that I need all of the individual costs that I had in my solo entrepreneur scenario. But if I've got clients coming in to see 6 different therapists, I probably at the desk to answer, to check people in, to answer the phones and do items like that. Okay. So I'm going to go through the exact same process. I've got 6 therapists. They're going to bill full time. That's $75,000 per month in revenue. I'm going to pay them $37,500 in variable costs. That's their compensation. I need a much bigger office, so my rent is going up to $6,500 per month. I'm going to pay my receptionist $3,200 a month. Now, this will vary depending on what market you are and how much space you have and how much salaries are in your area. That's fine. Just change the numbers as you need to. I'm increasing my marketing budget significantly. in order to drive traffic, because I want to be able to provide my therapist with a steady amount of leads so they can keep their full-time status. I've got increased costs in websites and software licenses and phones. I estimate that's going to cost me about $14,200 a month in fixed costs, which is a lot more than what I was paying as a solo practitioner. Third step, again, is just to go ahead and build your income statement. You put in your revenue of $75,000, subtract your variable cost of $37,500, leaving you a gross profit of $37,500. Subtract your fixed costs of $14,250, and you get an operating profit of $23,250. And then these are just the numbers annualized. I just multiplied them by 12. The third and final scenario that we're going to talk about is somebody who really wants to have a wide scale, and they want to open up multiple offices. We're going to assume the same model as scenario 2. I've got a working office with 6 associates, and they're billing full time at a 50-50 split. But if I'm going to have multiple offices, I'm going to assume that I'm going to have 4 offices that I'm going to run. And I know that my time is going to be pretty thin between 4 offices if I've got to manage 4 offices. So I'm going to hire an office manager for each one of those offices as well. So I've got the same expenses that I had in scenario 2, but now I'm adding in an office manager as well. So using the same model as scenario 2, I've got 6 therapists in each office. They're billing $125 for 25 hours a week for 4 weeks in a month. It's my same $75,000. This is an individual office. So my goal is really to kind of design my ideal office, and then we're going to multiply it by 4. We're going to have 4 locations after the fact. So I have my same revenue split. My rent's increasing a little bit more because I need to have a place for my office manager to sit. And I added my office manager's salary. And then a lot of these additional expenses for these individual offices pretty much stayed the same. Now, you can pull whatever levers you want, and that's fine. Adjust to your scenario. So step 3, go ahead and build your income statement. Your revenue is $75,000 for each office, fixed cost of $37,500, gross profit $37,500. Your fixed costs have increased to $22,450, leaving an operating profit of $15,000 per month, or $180,000 per year per office. If you've got 4 offices, then 180 times 4 brings you up to that $722,400. A lot of numbers in this presentation. I know a lot of you are numbers people, and that's fine. I really just wanted to make sure that you kind of understood the process. I think the most important thing, regardless of all the numbers, is for you to be really clear on what it is that you want to do with your practice. What is your why? Spend a lot of time really doing some soul searching and finding out what you want to do. After that, it's really just following the 3-step process. Find out what components you need in order to build the practice of your dreams. Assign the values to those components, and then build your income statement. And that income statement will give you the roadmap it'll give you a budget that you need to use or follow in order to build your business. Now, if things change as you go, just go back and revisit it. I mean, you make the changes until you come back to a scenario that you're comfortable with, and keep moving ahead. But the income statement is only a roadmap. It's only a plan. It's only a budget. I've been budgeting for a long time, and I know that every budget is wrong. It is a budget is a plan. And if everything goes ideally, then your plan will match up exactly. But nothing ever goes ideally. So you put together the plan, and then you analyze your results against the plan and say, well, why did we miss our plan? And then you adjust accordingly. Maybe you need to spend a little bit more money on marketing to bring more people in. Maybe you need to spend a little bit more time with your employees if you have turnover. There's a lot that goes into implementing the plan, and I don't want to overshadow that. But this is a good financial model to help you build your practice or build the practice of your dreams. But it all begins with your why. I can't emphasize that enough. Because if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up someplace else, and you may not like where it is you end up. And with that, that's pretty much all I have. I guess I'll open up to questions if anybody has any questions.
And thank you so much for all of that, Dan. I think one of my big takeaways from that is something that we talk about a lot here in different content that we produce here at Brighter Vision is looking internally for that why. Before you begin can set you up for so much success. We had a really great podcast episode that was released today with Katie and Kate Campbell from the Private Practice Startup. And it was actually about something completely different. It's about building a brand. But they were, in this podcast episode, which you can check out on our website for anyone who's interested. They talk about, before just jumping in and, creating a logo, creating a name for your business, to, think about, your why and the reasons why you're doing things. Because if you think about that beforehand, it can help guide, everything else in your business, from the branding to the financial planning of it to, how big you want to grow. Do you want this to be, a, solo practice, or do you want it to, grow into a situation where you're having multiple offices like you talked about in one of the scenarios. So, I really loved what you had to say and kind of the advice that you gave. I think that's just so helpful and so important to, people who are, starting and building a business.
And if you get clear on your why, a lot of those questions that you don't know how to answer, you can't quite figure it out, you can always refer back to your why, and the answers are almost always there for you. If you're really clear on what you want, this is what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and this is what it looks like. When a question comes up, you just ask yourself, how does that fit into my why? How does that fit into my end goal or where I'm going? And if it doesn't fit in, then you shouldn't. Why am I doing it? And if it's a choice between a couple of 2 or 3 different options, then you choose the option that is most closely aligned with your why.
And so we have our first question from Deanna. How do you connect your why to the destination? In other words, how do you narrow down the dream into steps to implement? I'll let you start with that, Dan, and then I have some stuff I can add if you want to maybe start off answering that question from Deanna.
Yeah, that is a vague question. I guess I'll do the best that I can, Deanna. And if you have any follow-up questions, please put them in. What you need to do is get clear. So what are the individual steps, or how do you break it down? So I think I'm going to use Stephen Covey because I guess reciting books today, kind of begin with the end in mind. So if you figure out what your why is, I just really enjoy the client aspect of it, So if I'm spending if my why is I just want to help people, and I don't want to take away from my time to work with other therapists to build up a practice. I just really want to help people, and maybe I don't want to be a business owner. That's another why. You can go work for somebody else and help people. But maybe you don't want to work under somebody else's rules or under somebody else's red tape sometimes. Maybe there's personality conflicts. I just want to have my own office. Well, that is your end then, right? So you kind of begin, I really want to help people. My end is going to be, I want to have my own office. It's just going to be a small little office, and I can bring people in and out. Okay, what do I need to do in order to have that office? Well, obviously I need to pay rent. Okay, well, I got to pay rent, so I've got to have money to pay rent. So if I was going to have my own office, what does my billables really look like? What does my revenue really look like? So how much revenue am I going to get? And then, how much do I need to make in order for me to sustain my lifestyle? And then how much is left for expenses? And that's really how Profit First works. So there's a couple of different things. You need to really define the building blocks of your company. And I think if you have that why, you can kind of, with your why, you can kind of get to the end, and then you begin with the end in mind. I know that I want to open up a practice. I know I want it just to be me. And I know I need to have 25 clients a month, or I'm sorry, 25 clients a week in order to do that. So then now you just break each of those components down into smaller and smaller steps. I have an office, so I need to rent someplace. I'm going to need some furniture. I'm going to need some way for them to contact me or book appointments. I'm going to need 25 clients. I'm going to need a marketing budget. I'm going to need a way to generate these leads that I can convert to clients. There's a bunch of different things. There's lead generation, there's lead conversion, there's client fulfillment, and there's marketing, and these are all very generic terms that you can use across any types of business. But okay, I'm sorry, Dan, I'm reading your words now. Okay, these pieces are helpful. I need to work on getting more clear in the end. I want a business, I want a mentor, I want to practice, I want to teach and build the content, help as many people as possible, and create a new treatment approach. So what you may want to do, that's a big elephant, but so you should eat it one at a time, one bite at a time. I would start with your own little small practice and get those. Oops, I'm sorry. Get your process down. You talk about wanting to, teach and build the content and your own treatment approach. Open up your own practice and really hone in on your systems, get your systems down, and then start bringing people in. You don't have to hire them all at once, but maybe bring in one or two people and kind of get them in trend systems. And then maybe, you're probably always going to be tweaking them a little bit more. Well, then if money isn't an issue, so I'm sorry for people who aren't reading this, Deanna just said, consider that money is not an issue. She has big investors. So if money's not an issue, then it's how many people you want. It's how fast you can generate the content and how much time you have to spend, training up and mentoring your other employees. So you can kind of see where I'm going. There's a path, and there's a lot of little side things that come from that path in terms of what do I need to do for marketing? What do I need to do from just a facilities standpoint? What do I need to do for the content that I'm providing to my clients? What do I need to do to train that content to my mentors or to people that I'm mentoring? How do I bring people in to mentor them? I mean, there's a lot of little different questions. And quite frankly, I would get a notebook, and every time something came up, I'd start jotting it down.
Yeah. And I think, oh, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I'm just reading Deanna's comment. It is a lot. If you build it, they will come, but the building is a big process. And it does, I think a lot of people underestimate how much time and resources it takes from you in order to get that machine up and running.
Oh yeah, and
I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
I really love, kind of what you said. I think the big part of that is, starting with the end in mind. Stephen Covey's great book. That was always one of my biggest takeaways from that book. And even if you're looking at any business, figure out the financials of what you need to make that business work, and then there's levers within that number that you can pull to make different things happen. So Mark Power had a question about how do I go from a solo practice to multiple offices. So this is a great question, Mark. This is something that I'll start with this one, and maybe Dan can follow up with some additions. Mm-hmm. In my time here at Brighter Vision, so I've been here, nearly since the beginning of the company. We had a lot of, especially, early on, those customers that have been with us, 3-4 years. I've seen over time those solo practices become group practices. And the similar trajectory that I see that this will typically take, and the way that I've seen it work best, is one single therapist is getting too many referrals that they cannot see all of the clients that are referred to them. When you are able to build a referral network and you're able to establish yourself as a specialist in some sort of issue, it doesn't matter if you still see, all issues, but if you have some specialty that you can create and some niche you can create for yourself, that your colleagues say, oh, hey, Mark is really good with this issue. I'm going to send them these clients. I can't see them. Opening yourself up to taking every single referral you possibly can is a great way to be able to, grow your business. Because then what happens is, okay, you're getting too many referrals. You don't have enough time to see all of these clients that are coming in. Great. That's when you hire your first clinician. And then it is totally okay, especially for, newer clinicians. I've seen they're, typically really okay taking a part-time within a group, because maybe they're doing, maybe they're working for 2 groups simultaneously as an independent contractor, and they're just looking for that part-time gig. So I think that the opportunity really exists to bring on somebody part-time and then improve, your marketing and work on getting, building that network so that, you can, not only fill your own schedules, but fill the schedules of each clinician you bring on, one at a time. And I realize that is, easier said and done. We have produced, some great content about this topic. Katie Hill, the product marketing specialist at Brighter Vision, she actually has linked that in the description. But, working to, get those referrals so that you can bring on someone, because you don't want to bring on someone preemptively before you're going to be able to fill their schedules, because that's good for no one. It's important to first have those people in place that you can, provide an employee who you would hire with the infrastructure and then the clients that they need to see. So anything you have to add to that, Dan?
No, I agree with everything you said, and I'll actually take it to the next step, Mark. If you can grow that, if you get those referrals and you add an extra head and then you add 2 heads, and all of a sudden you've got 4 or 5 or 6 therapists working for you, and now you're looking to start moving to another physical location, I would try to set your systems up in such a way that you're kind of like removing yourself from the job, removing yourself from the office, and then you're just going to kind of use a cookie cutter approach in your second location. If the first office can pretty much run itself, it's humming along. It's like I like to say, you've got therapists who are working there. They're billing a certain number of hours. They're kind of coming and going. They're able to manage their workload. Then you can try to find a second location and continue to use those referrals to then add your 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th therapist at the second location. And just kind of, you've already got all your systems in place from your first office. Just apply that to the second office. It's just a matter of adding the personnel and applying the systems. I mean, I say I know there's a lot of work in generating all of those leads and those referrals in that business. But once you get to a certain breaking point, then they just kind of start flowing in, and then, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I do think that's huge too, Dan. I agree with that too. I think having those repeatable systems in place, especially when you're scaling a business, is going to really make it, everything you do a lot more successful, long term. So I love that part of your answer as well. So Ivy had a question about any advice we have for cash flow. This is another question we get a lot here at Brighter Vision as well. And there are some great ways to, I know that Dan had talked about, the sessions and, the number of sessions you have to do to, achieve a certain amount of cash flow. I do think, though, it's helpful, and this was one thing Dan also mentioned, though, to point out additional streams of revenue that can be really successful at sustaining a practice, especially in a time, like, the summer. I know we're moving into back to school season now, which is typically a busy time for the mental health industry. But during the summer, things are, can be slower. And, to maintain that cash flow with your business, there's a couple of great ways to do that. So some ways that we have seen our customers have success is authoring books. We've seen that people who are authoring books, not only can you sell those books, but there is a secondary effect of establishing yourself as an expert, which ultimately helps market you, share your expertise, and lead to more referrals. So that's one way. Another great way is to develop e-courses. If you can develop an e-course for, let's say, you develop a specific, modality that you found works really well at, treating patients, you have that published, you can, create an e-course for this modality that you've created. A lot of people don't think this is an option, but it totally is. You have the expertise. If you're an experienced clinician, you have a wealth of knowledge that you can share about, ways to successfully treat patients and how to, help people achieve better outcomes. So that's another option. But yeah, Dan, do you have anything else to Ivy's question about improving, cash flow?
Well, actually, that actually kind of plays right into our offer. Mike Michalowicz has this book called Profit First, and our firm, we implement Profit First in all types of businesses, including therapy practices. And the one thing that there's, if you haven't read this book already, I strongly recommend picking it up. The offer that we have today has 10 videos walking you through exactly how to implement it. And it also has 7 videos that talks about the behavioral part of it. But the nuts and bolts of the way Profit First works, as therapists, you see clients that have a problem, and you can't really change their problem, but you can change the way, change their perspective on that problem. And that's kind of what Profit First does. The typical formula, and I used it today, sales minus expenses equals profit. That's the typical way that business is analyzed in terms of GAAP accounting. What Profit First does is it says, we take your sales, then we subtract out your profit, we set your profit to the side, and whatever's left is your expenses. And Profit First allows you, or it systematically puts a system in place where now you're managing around your expenses. And Mike often talks about the concept of full plates. One of the reasons Americans are getting heavier and heavier and heavier is that our plates are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. 80 years ago, our plates were like this big. Now they're growing up, they're getting this big. People will go and they just fill up their plate, and then your parents teach you to eat your food until it's gone. Your checking account's the same way. If you have a bunch of sales and then you look at you figure what's left for expenses, you'll never have any profit. And Profit First is a good system where you can actually take your sales, you set your profit off to the side, and you live on your remaining expenses. And it's a simple process to implement. We can walk you through it, or the videos are a much cheaper way of doing it. But we highly recommend Profit First. It's it's the business equivalent to personal finance. Personal finance, they always tell you to pay yourself first, right? You get your paycheck, or you get your money, and then you take money, you put some into investments, you put some into savings, and then whatever's left, that's what you live on. Profit First is the exact same thing for business. So I would say concentrate on your sales, because obviously you have to have the sales for the cash flow. And then, Profit First can help you. It causes you to focus on your expenses, or how much you have left for expenses. And it forces you to make your business more efficient so that you can live within your expense budget.
That's great. And Sarah has a question here too. Sarah says, do you have any advice on fair revenue split with therapists you bring on board? You mentioned 50/50 as a revenue split.
I have a friend. He's actually a really interesting perspective for me, because he and I went and got our MBAs together. And 10, 15 years after he got his MBA, he went back to school to become a therapist. So he understands the number side of it. And he told me that 50/50 is a very common split. He has the office that he's working in right now. He doesn't have his own office. The office he's in right now has a 50/50 split. He's seen 60/40 splits, but he told me that 50/50 is, now this is, I'm in the Atlanta area, and our experience is that in Atlanta, a lot of the times it's a 50/50 split, and it's their gross rate, times 50%. So if they're billing, I'll make it easy. If they're billing $200 an hour, then you should get 100 and they would get 100. If they're billing 150 an hour, then you get $75, they get $75. Now, I will caution you, my friend, Steven, he says that 50-50 is very common. He's seen 60-40 where the practice owner gets 60, but I could see 60-40 the other way as well. What's important to you, Sarah, is that you understand your expense burden, your rent, the cost of your therapist, the cost of your receptionist, et cetera, if you have it, so that when you are doing these revenue splits, that you're not incurring more cost to have that therapist there than you're actually recouping, getting money back from them. There should be enough for you to cover your costs, plus have a little extra profit from that for having that responsibility and taking the time to have that extra therapist in there. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's spot on. That's kind of what I've heard too here, Dan. The one situation where I have heard that it goes 60 with the therapist and 40 to the business is a situation where you are trying to incentivize a more experienced clinician or someone who with a specific set of skill sets, you're trying to incentivize them to come on. Just because they can bring a lot of value, they already have a great referral network. And if it's someone like that, who's more experienced, you're trying to bring on, I have seen it that other way, but 50-50 is the common split I've seen too. Dan has another question. Do you have any suggestions, tools for budgeting, both business and personal? And I'll let Dan start with that one.
I can recommend. There are a lot of different items out there, right? I mean, you can go to Microsoft Excel and download a budget. I actually do some personal financial coaching as well, and I'll tell you how I approach it, Deanna. I would start with your personal financing, and I would create a personal budget for you to make sure that how much money you're getting out of your business. Now, I said that how much money you need to get out of your business. Now, I know you said you've got a bunch of investors, but you have expenses in your everyday life that you must pay: rent or mortgage, car payment, food, insurance, stuff like that. So I would start with a personal budget, figure out what you need to do in your day-to-day, how much money you need every month for you to survive or to flourish, to invest, and how much do you need? And then I would reverse engineer that into your business. This is how much money I need to get out of my business to fund my personal life. And that would be the starting point. I mean, if you can get more than that, great. But then I would budget your expenses in your business so that you can drive that output, your salary or your profits, into your personal life and kind of tie the two of them together. And if you need, and I'm making numbers, if you need $5,000 in your personal life, I would not design a business over here that you weren't getting at least $5,000 a month out of. I mean, they're very closely linked together. As a business owner, they're very much hand in hand. There are a ton. If you do a Google search for personal budget template, you'll get over 100 million 100 million results. If you can't find something that works out to me, reach out to me personally, and I'll do what I can to help you out with that. It is overwhelming. You're welcome. Yeah, feel free to contact me, Deanna. I'll gladly help you out.
And and thanks so much for that answer. I think that's really great stuff there, Dan. One thing. So we got about 10 minutes left here. If anyone who's attending right now has some final questions they want to ask, now's the time. Definitely want to get to any kind of lingering questions that anyone has. And yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left here, so feel free to put any questions in the chat. Once again, too, just wanted to let you know, Exego's offer. I am going to put that again here. The link in the general chat. The coupon code for them is just Brighter Vision to get 75% off if you are interested in their course. Yeah, and feel free to take advantage of that. That's something that I wouldn't know, Mark. We would have to, you probably have to reach out to her personally to ask. But yeah, any other questions about what we had kind of talked about? Oh, here we go. Heather has a question. Do you have any links or referrals to help with the legal aspect of adding clinicians to your practice? I don't have any information about the legal aspects. I can reach out because we do have a couple of consultants that we work with. If you want to email me privately, Heather, I'm happy to find you some resources. There's my email too for anyone who wants it. Feel free, you can always send me an email. Sometimes it takes me a day or two to get back to you, get a lot of emails, but I will always respond as soon as I am available. So, oh yeah, and then Dan just put his email there for anyone who would like to reach out to him personally too. I think that's great. You know, we love just being in contact with people after these sorts of webinars because we want to help. So, cool. But yeah, Dan, was there any kind of final things that you like to add? Doesn't look like we're getting too many questions, so we'll just kind of maybe start to wrap things up. But anything that you wanted to share before we go?
More philosophical than anything else, probably.
I love it.
I mean, life is too short, and it's too, you know, when my friend, when I gave him this presentation last week when I was practicing with him, he said he was really surprised because he knows I'm a number guy, and he was so surprised that I was totally bought into the why concept and stuff like that. Life is too short to be unhappy with what you do. And that's why I push so hard to really concentrate on your why, because you can find yourself in a situation where you used to love doing what you're doing, and you wake up 5 years later and you hate it. And then it doesn't mean your life is over. Just refocus on what's important to you, and then make the changes in your life in order to get there. You know, maybe it's opening your own practice. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to work for somebody else. And that's fine. But life is too short to stress and be unhappy with your day-to-day situation. Find out what really drives you, what you really want to do, and chase it. Find a way to get it done. Yeah. That's really all the big advice.
I love that. I think that is kind of a great place to end on. Was really happy to have everyone here today join us. And Dan, really appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise. You know, this is a skill set that is very different from my own. You know, I'm more on the marketing side, you're more on the finance side, and we really appreciate you taking the time. Would love for everyone to check out Exego's Profit First course. They are offering specifically for mental health professionals. Just really appreciate you spending the time here today, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day, everyone. There is, before you go too, if you want to download these slides, there is a link right here in the chat. And then, to anyone who is watching this webinar, the recording later, it'll be glad you took a chance to view it. And then anyone who is here live, we will be sending the recording as well if you'd like to, rewatch it. So, and then, just a final reminder, Brighter Vision is offering $100 off a new website account with us with coupon code FIC 2019. And I'll put that in the chat one more time. And hope you all have a great day. Doing a couple more webinars next week. We have one next week on branding and then another one on scaling up your business. So Mark, if you're interested in that, Joe Stanek is going to be joining us to chat about how to scale up a business. So that's a great opportunity for you to attend that as well. Hope everyone has a great rest of the week. And thank you once again, Dan. And I will see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sam.